What's really hard is when you do logical things for a living, it makes it even worse, right? If you work for a Momo fund, you think this is the greatest thing ever. Because look, there's nothing wrong with momentum. It's one half. Like, I would say you're either genetically a value person like me or a Momo person. It doesn't make you good or bad. It's like being introvert and extrovert. It doesn't make you good or bad. It's just how you charge your battery. So, but they're fundamentally different. Like, you're never going to make me an introvert. I am never, at the end of a long day, going to go sit by myself with a book. That's just not going to happen. I need people to recharge my battery. And again, that doesn't make me a bad person or a good person. It just is. And so if you're a Momo in a Momo world, life is awesome. And you justify well, we all do this, right? When things are working, you say, oh, look how smart I am. And when they're not, you're like, oh, the market's broken. It's not that the market's broken. It's just we're in this phase. Look at M2. It's going up. And when M2 is going up, guess what happens? Stocks go up. The other thing that happens, look, Bitcoin goes up. Bitcoin's up this year a lot. Not because Bitcoin got better. One Bitcoin's still one Bitcoin. What happened? The dollar got worse. The dollar got worse.
Hello and welcome to Money Talks. In today's video, Mark Yusko gives us an update on his current macro thesis and his perspective on current global market conditions, also his prediction for Bitcoin and crypto, and where he thinks the market will go in the next months. So let's get started with the video.
You know that the FOMC, right, which is not just one guy or gal, but it's, hundreds of very highly educated PhDs,
Right.
on paper, very, very smart, right? And they've been predicting those two things, GDP and inflation, for dozens and dozens of years, right? Here's the crazy stat. I mean, this is a crazy stat. They are over on those predictions. Like literally 0 for like 286 or whatever it is on the quarterly. I mean, it's you can flip a coin and be right half the time. They are horrible at that. So his commitment to say, I don't see, not commitment, but him saying, I don't see any more rate hikes, I'll take that as signal. Him saying no recession and inflation not coming down, noise, right? This is a guy who said inflation is transitory when it was 2% last time, on its way to 7. And now that it's fallen from 7 to 3 and probably heading for sub 2, probably even, I don't know that we'll get all the way back to deflation, but there are some things that are looking pretty ugly. So I don't take his proclamations there with that much seriousness. If we think about the last tech bubble, right? 2000, 2001, 2002. So 2000 was not the big bad year. Everybody thinks of it as that's when it turned. Well, the market was only down 9%. It just wasn't even down that much. And then in first quarter 01, it actually rallied a decent amount. And then it fell off, and it was all Fed based because the Fed was going to save the day. And then it rallied hard into that face melter that Druck talks about, kind of right up until 9/11. And we were almost back to even by September. And then we had a pretty serious correction exacerbated by 9/11. And I think we were down 13, 14 for the year. But it was 2002. It was the bad year, right? That's when we found out WorldCom was a fraud, and that Enron was a fraud, and that Cisco had to restate all their earnings. So I think if you look at this one, if this was tech bubble 2.0, it's possible that we're going to play out that same way, where you have this relief rally. Now, the numbers are different in that we did have a really bad year in stocks in 2022, really good year in stocks this year, but net, you're still down, right? Over the period. If you're down 20 and up 20, you're still down. And then you could have the come to Jesus. And so I don't know. I would be more cautious than ebullient kind of coming into this September. I'm not saying it's gonna crash, but I would say that there's a force countervailing against your chase, which I do think is probably going to happen.
Despite BTC and ETA's indifferent response to macroeconomic factors and their current sideways trading, the market anticipates a rise in volatility and a possible significant BTC price increase by year's end due to factors like the BlackRock spot ETF ruling and the Bitcoin halving, with accumulators emerging as an effective strategy for accredited investors to acquire coins at discounted prices steadily, they wrote. Elsewhere, Galaxy Digital's Mike Novogratz recently said in an interview with Bloomberg that the most important thing that happened this year in Bitcoin is Larry Fink, emphasizing his bullishness about the world's largest digital currency post-ETF filing. Larry was a non-believer. Now he says, hey, this is going to be a global currency. People around the world all trust it, Novogratz said, while also mentioning that Galaxy Digital is committed to maintaining a presence in New York. Novogratz also said that his ideal portfolio for a young person with risk tolerance is shares of Alibaba, silver, gold, Bitcoin, and Ether. Meanwhile, Joe DiPasquale, the CEO of crypto fund manager BitBull Capital, said Bitcoin's ability to shrug off macroeconomic events or even material technical events like the Curve Finance exploit has created a recent sustained sentiment shift to the upside in the markets. Notably, now that the Fed's interest rate hike is also priced, the fact that Bitcoin and ETH have both maintained their price levels should give bulls additional confidence, DiPasquale wrote in a note to CoinDesk. BitBull's DiPasquale is not expecting an overnight surge in the market and sees 2024's halving as the next major price spur. Until then, bulls will do well to accumulate when opportune, and bears may want to practice vigilant risk management, he wrote.
And so there's nobody that can change. Like NVIDIA, there's no way you should pay $220 for $1 of earnings, no matter how fast that earnings is growing, no matter how big AI is. We've talked about C3 AI, right? And this guy's laughing. He's probably not listening to this, but this guy that, told me it's going to go to the moon, it's going to the moon. I'm like, what are you talking about? They faked all the data. They got this big Air Force contract and they faked it. And that now has come out in a court case. This former employee said, yeah, we faked it. And the stock won't go down because its ticker symbol is AI. They incinerate cash. They literally burn $150 million a year. So they've burned almost $750 million in their life. And the stock is up like 300% this year. That's insane. That's literally insane. But what stops it? Because a short seller that tried to short that has been carried out. And the only thing I can compare it to is MicroStrategy. First iteration. MicroStrategy was the $3 stock in 2000. It went to 100. And all the short sellers got carried out on a stretcher. I mean, literally. And they came back. And it went to 200. And they all got carried out. They came back for a third try. It went to $330 at the peak. $330. Okay?
What is it at now?
And then it went to 3. It went from 330 to 3. Michael got fined by the SEC for fraud, for making fraudulent statements, cooking the books, had to pay in the paper, had to actually admit guilt this time. Usually you pay a fine, you don't admit guilt. I'm like, if you pay a fine, you're guilty. But he actually had to admit guilt. And he went underground for 20 years before he became, Bitcoin Messiah. But that story is just so, and I'm not saying Google is that. I'm not saying Amazon is that. What I am saying, NVIDIA is that. Those are real companies doing real things. What I'm saying is we're in that mania phase where We have total willing suspension of disbelief. We really believe that Tom drove off a cliff instead of a giant ramp with safety stuff. But he still drove a motorcycle off a ramp and with a parachute. I mean, and it's an amazing scene.
So what's your price prediction for Bitcoin at the end of 2023? Tell us in the comments. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe. See you soon with the next video. Thank you so much for watching.